We've all heard the expression, kids don't come with instructions. They really don't. And sometimes we just look at them and go, now what? Our next guest is Becky Brezovski. And Becky has written a book that I love the title, Eat, Sleep, Poop, Repeat. Becky, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So I assume this book is in essence some instruction on how to deal with some of the challenges we have with newborns.
It is. Babies really only have 3 functions. And so my title of my book, I thought was really cute, because if there's something wrong with one of the 3 functions, then you have a really unhappy baby.
Now, your specialty is craniosacral therapy. Is that, did I say it right? What is that?
Yeah, that's right. Craniosacral therapy is one of the lightest touch modalities in the entire spectrum from bodywork. So if you have physical therapy, say it would be like a 10. Craniosacral is a 1 on a scale of 1 to 10. It's really gentle, and what it does is it goes in and tunes the nervous system. So if there's disruption within the nervous system, it stays not only within the spinal column, but also within the tissue. And that is where memory and trauma is held, is in with the tissue. So all I do is really gently go in and help the body find a way through it.
Yeah. It's so interesting to me that, as a parent, you're both excited and scared to death about what's about to happen to your life. You have this infant who is born, and there could be trauma at birth. There can be things that happen immediately after that you bring the child home. What are some of the things that you advise parents and what they should look for and how they should feel about the things they're experiencing?
Okay, so birth trauma, by definition, is adding a force to a tissue upon birth. So if parents have had to have a C-section, or if they've had to have forceps, or if they've had to have a vacuum, those kind of, just those 3 are kind of the big ones that we see come right from birth. Mm-hmm. The nervous system, those cranial bones are supposed to be squeezed. And when they're not squeezed right away, this nervous system doesn't really have a chance to sort of calibrate and get online. So the first things we start to see is babies have a hard time nursing. And that is really what I see in my clinic. About 8 out of 10 babies have a really hard time with their tongue. So we really have to sort of talk to parents and educate them about the importance of oral skills with their babies right away. That's a really big indicator of how the rest of the system is going to work. So again, eat, sleep, poop, and repeat. If this is the first stage of dysfunction in your baby, you're going to have some problems. So parents can look for that. So they can also look for when their baby has plagiobrachiocephaly, so their heads are misshapen a little bit.
Right,
Sometimes that can be a big problem. Yeah, and they can see it doesn't just have to be bruising, but you see it a little bit later on, a really fussy baby. Any baby that's really been helped coming out of the birth canal, we put them into what we call like a forced extension, where their neck and their head get arched back. So babies really have a hard time settling. They don't like their car seats. They don't like being put down into their bassinet. Parents always complain about that. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of parents tell me these same stories every single day. Throughout my entire day, I hear, yep, okay, we're validating your story, we're hearing you. Those are the big things to look for. I'm
so glad you wrote this book, Eat, Sleep, Poop, Repeat, because honestly, after I had 5 children, my wife had 5 children. and every single birth was different. There were different issues that came up with every single child. I think parents are scared. Should they be scared? Or maybe just information from your therapy and your experience would allay their fears.
We don't want people to be afraid of what's coming, because everybody overcomes part of this eventually. What we do see though clinically is, even if you've had trouble or you've had trauma or you're carrying that trauma yourself, your baby's carrying it with you and they have their own story about where they came from and how they came into this world. Mm-hmm. I don't want parents to be afraid of it, but I want to create an awareness, because it's one of those conversations that's just not had. Majority of the parents that I work with and speak with, they will tell me they go to their doctor and to the pediatrician or their midwife, and they don't get a full picture of the story. You're told, oh, your baby has reflux. Here's the medication for your reflux, but they don't talk about to the point that there's something that is not functioning in your baby that's creating that problem. So it's more of just setting a tone to pay attention to these things. You're validating what parents are telling you, and you have to really trust your own instincts in all of this. And if you really feel that there is something going on, there are so many resources available now, thanks to social media, as well as people like myself who are really niche market. there's thousands of practitioners all over the US and Canada that really address these kind of issues.
Well, this didn't exist when my children were born, but Google certainly is one of those places people go to for immediate information. And sometimes the information isn't that great. So what's your guidance there?
Google Doctor is really fantastic for a lot of things, but the stuff that I do in treat in clinic is not necessarily well known enough that you can understand it or find the right resources for what you're looking for. I will honestly say this last year writing this book, a lot of my learning, I mean, I've trained a lot, but a lot of my learning I've learned through a lot of the OTs and speech paths, as well as lactation consultants. My midwife team that I work with is fantastic, but they all reference and go to specific social media platforms that are just educational and so informative, because not everybody's a specialty in all of it, but they are very specialized in one niche area that they can really help you. So, I mean, my book, I really hope to take pieces of everything, because I work within so many dynamic teams, saying these are the things that we see coming forward. If we can treat them as an infant, will we see those same issues when babies are in hitting preschool? And then what happens at 3, 4, when you go into kindergarten? So if we eliminate the thing that's creating the problem behaviorally and social emotional, will we see those things down the road? And really, if we follow the work, the answer really is no. So it's really, really important that people try to understand it, but also understand this is kind of it's not really out there in terms of body work, but it's not common for everybody to find these things.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting that you have a blog. Tell me about the blog, because I think the blog is interesting as well. You learn a lot of things from that. And so you have this book, you've written a second book, and you've got this blog. Yes.
So the blog is called Flourish and Sprout. Flourish is another word for flourish, and Sprout, I talk about little tiny kids. I believe that when we have a conscious parent, that we start with a seed and we grow with love and energy, and we have a little person who becomes this really compassionate little soul. The blog is really based on not only my 20 years of clinical work, but my 14 years as a mom and also as a yogi and as a very conscious parent myself. I'm not afraid to dive into those conversations. Again, I've done this so long, and I've done tens of thousands of appointments. So those conversations really become important, so that someone is addressing them directly. And so I have guest bloggers, and I've got moms with kids of different ages who come on the blog and talk about whatever it is they really wanted to talk to. I'm really conscious that parenting looks very differently in all demographics, and that we really need to be supporting families of all types. So I really try to address a lot of those things, and the blog is just getting started, and we're just kind of rolling through it. But there's about 50 articles that will be up on there by the end of the week. And so, it's really kind of a nice platform on top of the book. And then my second book is called Brains, Games, and Locomotion. It will be coming out this spring, and it's literally taking what I've done as a baby and putting it now into a toddler between the ages of 1 and 3, and not only the developmental important steps that we take, but what body work looks like for those kids and what movement looks like for those kids to help address those behavioral issues.
So what I said at the beginning is really not true. Babies do come with instructions. You just have to listen to Becky Brezovski to get the information and get the knowledge that you need. And I think it's incumbent on parents to get as much education as they become parents about what may happen and what to expect with their children. I think that's the only responsible thing to do. But I so appreciate the book that you've written and that we're talking about today. It's called Eat, Sleep, Poop, Repeat. A great title. Becky, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.